So it's been some time since I last reviewed the Obsbot Tail Air, which is a $500-ish camera. It has a 1 out of 1.8 inch sensor, which means the image quality is pretty good, better than most phones, but not quite a mirrorless camera. But for a camera at that price point, I don't think the image quality and sensor size were bang for buck. Because I do think that a lot of the cost of this camera was going into the features rather than the actual image quality. So I do think that this camera was targeting a more advanced type of user. But today, we might have a webcam that might be more value for money at a lower price point. This is the Emeet Smartcam S800, and as of this video, you can find this webcam between $100 and $150. Let's unbox it. And by the way, Emeet did send me the Smartcam S800, but everything I say in this video are my thoughts only. Let's see what's in the box. Pretty simple packaging. Moment of truth. Huh. Packaging doesn't instill a lot of confidence. I hope this camera still works. But the actual webcam looks pretty good. There's quite some weight to it. It does have a mostly plastic build quality, but it does feel a bit heftier than the most basic webcams, and it weighs 183.6 grams. Anything else in the box? This is a pretty heavy-duty Type-C to Type-A cable. And we get the manual. Let's test it out. Okay, and we have just connected the Smartcam S800, and we have opened the Emeet Link app for macOS. And this is how that looks. It looks pretty decent, straight out of the box with the factory default settings. But right now, we got to do something to increase the resolution, because what I discovered was that you cannot change the resolution of this camera straight from the app itself. You have to open Zoom, perhaps, or in this case, I find that on OBS, if you double-click on the source, then go from 1080p, this is 1920 times 1080, then select 3840 by 2160. That is 4K Ultra HD resolution, and as we select OK, you can see that the resolution has bumped up. That is very clear. See how clear that is. And as I get closer to the camera, you can see all these details on my face that I don't want seen, but that is a very clear, almost mirrorless camera-like quality. I wouldn't say it's something like the Sony ZV-E10 up here. I wouldn't say it's quite there yet. Maybe something closer to a 1-inch sensor like a Sony ZV-1. But that is usually the hallmark or the benchmark for good enough YouTube quality. So let's go through the settings. I want to show you how I would personally adjust mine. So the framing grid, I would not use this. I don't really need this, but if you need a bit of a guide, sure, feel free to use that, but I'm going to keep it closed. I would select face metering, so if it's already set to face metering, just use that. Means it uses your face as the reference point for lighting. And of course, we want face focus. We do not want central area focus. That means if I move out of the center, it's probably not going to be in focus as much versus if I select face focus. So in this case, it is tracking my face and using that as the point of reference. As I get close, you can see the background even blurs out a little. That is very mirrorless camera-like, very high quality. And as I step back, there you go. The blur kind of disappears. That's just the way it works. You gotta get close to the camera and make sure you have a lot of distance in the background to get that background blur. All right, so now we have autofocus. I just want to show you what happens when you untoggle this. It actually becomes manual focus. And I can just gradually slide that to focus on something else if I wanted to do that, but I would just set this to autofocus, leave it as is. Here we have zoom. This might come in handy if you want to step back a little, have a different look. Of course, as you zoom in more, this is very likely going to result in a drop in resolution, but you know what? I'm not seeing much of a drop. I'm not seeing if the drop is substantial. Traditionally, this zoom is digital, and right now, I actually can't tell. It almost seems optical. If it is digital, and I think it is digital, it is likely a very good digital zoom. Yeah, I can see a bit of that grain, a bit more of that grain. Yeah, that is digital zoom. But at 4K resolution, even if you're zoomed in all the way, you're going to be close to 1080p if you zoom in all the way. So that's still pretty good quality if you ever need it. I would just use 4K. I wouldn't touch this. I'd keep that 73-degree field of view. Looks pretty good. Anti-flicker, I would, depending on your region, research the anti-flicker settings for your region. I know that in the Philippines, we should set it to 60 hertz, and in America, I believe it's also 60 hertz. This basically makes sure that you don't have flickering lights caused by the artificial lighting that you have. So here we have customization, standard, portrait, object. I'm not sure I would use any of these. Object, my eyes. Vivid nah. Bright, nah. I don't think any of these are usable. Maybe standard is fairly usable. Yeah, I think, if you don't want to try to figure things out from the default setting to standard, maybe standard is the factory default. This is what I would use, but I would like to customize this because I think there is room for improvement. So brightness, I'm going to keep this as is. EV, I'm going to keep that as is as well. Contrast, I would drop this to somewhere around 40. You can see we definitely lose that contrast, but you get a much more filmic look. And what I'm going to do now is, with the sharpness, this is the sad thing. If I drag down the sharpness, even by just a little bit, from 50 to 49, you might see that you lose a lot of resolution or clarity there. And as I jump it back to 50, it becomes very, very clear. Even though there's just one point through the slider, it just, there's a big jump to my eyes. All right, saturation, I'm going to bring this up to maybe around 70, and we're going to go back here later. Right now, that looks horrible. That does look horrible. Let's skip tone, because this is what happens. We do not want to look like the Hulk. So keep it at 50. White balance, I'm going to turn this off and manually set this to around 65, maybe 70. And then bring my saturation up even more to somewhere around 80. And I think this is beginning to look better. Maybe the contrast could be bumped up even more. Let's see what we can do there. A contrast of about 43 looks pretty good. White balance can drag this down even more, maybe around 60. Just to play around with this and see what works for you. But I am beginning to like this look. Just checking if I'm missing anything. HDR Now, I wouldn't even touch HDR. 60 hertz, saturation 80, contrast 42, tone 50, white balance 50. I think this is beginning to look good. I might keep contrast at 45, maybe 45, maybe 42. But essentially, with a white balance, I like to have a cooler look for the entire scene. And this right here, I think, looks pretty good. This looks very... There we go. 44. Look at that. It's kind of a neutral look. Very... This is so close. It reminds me of my mirrorless camera. And this is a setting that I think I am going to keep. And I will get back to you and let you know if we actually get to keep the settings after closing the app. Okay, so I restarted my Mac, and these are the settings after resetting. The white balance is set to the auto toggle again, so I have to readjust the white balance. I believe I set it to around 60 or so. I do like my white balance being cool leaning. So there we go. Maybe 65, somewhere over there. And there was another thing that I noticed, and that is the fact that it went back to 1080p. So again, I have to open OBS and select the 4K resolution, and now we are back to 4K resolution. So for the most part, if you just close the app, the settings are going to remain, all of them, in my experience, and you don't even need to have OBS on. It's something that you set up once and you are done for as long as the computer remains on. But the moment that you restart your MacBook or your Mac, all of those settings are going to stay except for the white balance and the resolution. So that's just something to take note of. I don't think it's a deal breaker. I really do hope they fix this in a future firmware update, because right now I'm looking at this look and I'm really digging it. I like it. I like this look so far. Maybe I could even drop the sharpness again, bring it down to 49 just to make it less over sharpened. That looks pretty good. And this is a 1/2-inch Sony sensor. It might be an old sensor that Sony is just trying to get rid of, but let the quality speak for itself. I would be completely comfortable using this setup for a YouTube video. This is 4K resolution, 1/2-inch sensor, great lighting. Let me change my lighting setup so far just to see what that does. Okay, let me turn off some of the lights in the background and see the low light performance, and that over there. Look at that image. There's so much dimension here. My face is very well lit because of this big umbrella over here. That is my main light source, or my key light. And this right here, I would be absolutely comfortable using this for a YouTube setup. And if you have a neat and tidy looking space, your composition is going to make up for the lack of bokeh. You don't really need a lot of that background blur. The background blur is usually there to keep the subject in focus. But if you know your composition, you know your lighting, that is not going to matter as much. Let me try to turn off the light. And that's still pretty good. Like, all I have now is that backlight, and I have my monitor in front of me as my light source. Let me turn off the backlight. That's really not half bad. Like, I thought that it would suffer more under poor lighting conditions. But, wow, look at that. Okay, the highlights were blown out, but now it's metering. It's using my face as the point of reference. This right here is YouTube-ready quality. This is professional. This is absolutely professional. So this whole time you've been seeing a screen share. Let me show you the actual footage. Okay, so this right here is the actual footage from the EMEET S800, and this is professional quality. No doubt about it. I would comfortably use this as my YouTube camera for my first couple of years as a YouTuber before I upgrade to something more substantial. But look at this. Look at the quality. What do you think? Do you think the quality is YouTube ready? And for comparison, let me show you the FaceTime HD camera. And this right here is my default FaceTime HD camera on the Macbook Air M2. World of difference. You can see it's so soft in terms of the resolution. You can look at the bokeh, yeah, not quite a bit of background blur, and I'm certain that the moment I turn off the light, you see more of that noise, more of that unwanted film grain. You might be thinking, is it the angle? Well, let me try to get a better angle, and I don't think it really is improving the image a lot. Maybe the colors could improve this, but in terms of sharpness and dynamic range, I don't quite like the colors and the overall look with this FaceTime HD camera. So definitely the Smartcam S800 is a true upgrade. Just a couple more cool things to note. It does have an aperture of f1.8, which explains the whole light gathering capability. Love that. It's great for low light. Autofocus is brilliant. Look at this. Look at how it focuses on my hand, and then my face, and then my hand, and then my face. And then this remote, whoops, it was focusing on my face. That's why it stopped focusing. Now it's focusing on my face, but when I bring this close to the front, wow, that was snappy. I can easily use this to showcase products for a YouTube video. And it does have this slidable privacy cover over here. Super convenient for those of you who are concerned about privacy. And just a quick bonus, the EMEET S800 has been on for roughly 4 hours now, and it is still going. And yeah, it's running a little warm, but I wouldn't call it hot. But if you've been wondering if this can last you a 4-hour video conference, I can confidently say, as of now, it is working absolutely fine. So, do I recommend the Emeet Smartcam S800? If it isn't obvious, I do. For $100 to $150 for this image quality, this webcam is super easy to recommend. Not too long ago, it would take you $400 to achieve this kind of image quality. If you are a new content creator, this is easily one of the best deals for video at this price point. Some might argue, well, I can use my phone as a webcam, and I did that for some time with this iPhone 12 Pro Max. But the thing is, if you're using your phone as the webcam, what are you gonna use as your phone? I couldn't count the times that I was getting calls while I was using this as a webcam. And even if I had Do Not Disturb on or airplane mode on, of course I'd be worried about emergencies. And if you're going to use your phone as a webcam for day-to-day use, that is going to do a number on its battery health. Plus, not everyone has a flagship phone. Flagship phones are expensive. This right here, dedicated video device for $100 to $150. Emeet, if you are watching this, just a couple of suggestions. Please allow us to adjust the resolution of the Smartcam S800 in the Emeet Link app. Most people would want to be able to set it to 4K from within the app and not have to use OBS. Also, it would be fantastic if you could allow us to set the ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. If you had to prioritize just two of those, ISO and shutter speed would be the priorities. If you want to get the Emeet Smartcam S800, check out the links down below. And massive thanks to these incredible people. Thank you. Big thanks to all the members of this channel. You guys help keep this channel afloat. And big thanks to all the subscribers. We wouldn't have gotten this far if not for you. If you're not a subscriber yet, I would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button down below. We are trying to get 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and you could help us achieve that. If you like videos like this one, check out this video.